focus on that. So Kelly Allen Agency, that's me.
Point it at the
Oh, awesome.
computer
This is my tagline, simple, safe, secure. Once upon a time, my agency name was called Kelly Allen Insurance, and it told everybody exactly what I did, insurance. And then what happened is I ended up merging with Farmers. I bought a Farmers agency, and they said, well, you can't have the word insurance in it. So I had to redo my name. So I just went with Kelly Allen Agency. But the simple, safe, and secure really ties back into the whole insurance thing, because when people want to work with me, they want to make sure that we're keeping things simple, that everything that they're doing is safe and protected, and that we're keeping as much of their information secure as possible. So there I am, part of my agency. And more about me, I'm a mother of two, a wife, and a Christian. And those are very important to me. Everything I do within my business, I want to keep my values at the forefront. So when I operate my business, I want to make sure that my family's in first in my mind, as well as my faith. I'm also a CPA, which is an accountant, a certified public accountant. Due to regulation, I have to say I'm inactive because I'm not practicing as a CPA. But I do maintain all my certifications for that. So in certain industries, you're required to have additional ongoing education. Insurance is one of them. Accounting is another. I didn't put in there that I'm actually a graduate of the University of Washington as well. But I know a lot of people are cougars, so my daughter is. I don't know how I bred a cougar. Anyway, my husband and I own a construction company, and that we started in 1999, so it's been in operation for quite some time. And then, because I had nothing else to do, that's when I started my own insurance company as well, but it wasn't until my children were out of the house. My daughter was off in college, and my son was a junior in high school. And we'll go into why I did that, because it's not like if you have one business going and a couple of kids, like you have a lot of extra time. So I hope that one of the things you'll take away is that you can have so much diversity in your life and so many things that you can do. So in addition, I'm a yoga instructor, and that's just kind of a personal fulfillment for me. But keep in mind, so my background is the accounting. That is what I graduated from the University of Washington with. And as I've moved on, I've gone into insurance and yoga, but I'm also involved in our community. So as you know, I'm with the Lakeland Rotary Club, past president. I'm also a board member of Heritage Heights, and I'm a former city council member. And there's my family. All right, so the W's. You guys know what the 5 W's are? You've gone over that? Typically, the 5 W's have to do with marketing. But for me, I also incorporate it with the formation of my business and why I got started. So 1 W is win. I started my business in 2014, and I started it as a sole proprietor. So sole proprietor means that you're just an individual running a business, to make it quite simple. As a sole proprietor, the taxing that's involved is pretty simple, but I'm also at risk as a sole proprietor. So if I make a mistake, they can come after not only my business, but my personal assets. So I wanted to protect myself a little bit more and became an LLC, which is a limited liability corporation. My why for my business has always been advocacy. As you recall, I'm a member or a partner in a construction company, had a lot going on already there, but I decided that there were changes in regulations that were having a huge impact on not only me and my family, but on the community and businesses as a whole. And what happened was in 2013, the Affordable Care Act came about, which said everybody has to have affordable insurance. What we discovered is affordable wasn't affordable for many. And so I wanted to find out why. And I wanted to find out what was going on. And I wanted to be a voice to my community then also to other business owners and individuals, so that I could actually be a liaison, if you will, communicating from the community to the government and how they're making changes and how it impacts our community members. So that involved getting an additional education. I had to get licensed. I had to understand how to get involved with government, and really had to understand the products and alternatives available. So it was a huge learning curve for me, but that continues to be my main focus, is the advocacy. So I don't have it up here, but I've joined a couple professional organizations that are basically lobbyists and work very closely with our state government. So what? I started as health insurance, and a health insurance agent only. Hugely frustrating for me. I had to make call after call after call, because when it comes to sales, and if you're the only person, you're the one who's out there finding the business. My business was across the entire state, so I had call lists that would come in, and I would just sit there day after day making phone calls. Well, that got kind of tiresome, and so then finally, after a bit, I expanded into Medicare. And so that allowed me to give more offerings into our community as well. And then I moved into farmers. So what I did over a little bit of time is I grew my products, and I know many of you have talked about expansion in your business plan. So I expanded my products, but I narrowed my area of focus. So I came more into our community instead, because at first I thought, well, I need to blast out the entire state and let everybody know I'm out here. Oh my word, that was hard. So as soon as I focused, that's when I really noticed my business starting to grow. Initially, I focused the who, that's another W, so when, why, what, who. Must be missing the how. Initially, so they were aged 18 to 65. So those are all individuals that are under 65 that I was able to market health insurance, but then Medicare is 65 plus. So that expanded my market. So from basically I can insure everybody. Where? And I already talked about this. My target market shrunk. So you'll find with business that it's kind of always measuring, monitoring, and assessing the situation. Talked about having been a sole proprietor when I started my business, and then later changed. And again, that was due to liability. Does everyone understand what liability is?
Does anyone?
Like when you stick to something, or I don't know.
That might be accountability, maybe?
Oh yeah.
Liability is when you're responsible for any damages that you do to somebody. So if you make a mistake and it causes somebody, in my case, it would be if I put somebody in the wrong insurance plan where they're not covered. That could end up costing me a lot of money, because when they travel, if they're not covered and they get sick, and let's say they have a couple $100,000 in medical bills, and if I didn't put them in the right plan, I'm responsible for that. So I didn't want to lose my home over making a mistake. So I went to an LLC. The other reason is I have employees. And as an LLC, it gives you more protection. For one, again, that liability is always a piece when you're a business owner, because you're constantly, you know what you're doing is right, but you're constantly making decisions for your clientele. And in so doing, you can mistakenly cause somebody some damage. So taxes were a big part too in my decision. And I'm not going to get into taxes because that gets complicated. Business plan. So I didn't have a business plan at first because I just wanted to be an advocate. I wanted to go out there and do good things and make sure that my community was informed. But then, I realized I was doing a lot of work and not making any money. So I did put together a business plan. And once I put it together, I made sure that I read my business plan every single morning. that held me accountable for my actions, because in my business plan, I wrote specific goals with time frames. And then as a business owner, what happens when you're working for yourself, you really have nobody to be accountable to. So having that business plan kept me on track. And here, this was my initial business plan, and I projected for 3 years out. I had my vision, which was within the next 3 years to grow my business. Again, the name, see, everything's Kelly Allen Insurance there, not agency, into the premier health and life insurance agency with revenues, commissions. All my money, everything I make is commission based. So I wanted to make $150,000 a year. My mission was to be committed to providing our community with the best quality health and life insurance choices, to provide expert caring solutions, to serve, guide, and protect family and businesses in our community. So I set specific objectives: to be known as a creditable professional business by having an office space. Initially, I was going to everybody door to door, so my office was my car. And for me, it was really important to have that professional space. To add 250 new individual or Medicare policies per year. I felt like that was an aggressive task, but it would keep me moving forward. To add 10 employer group plans, so I offer health insurance to businesses, and I did a smaller scale because they take a lot more work. This was an unrealistic one here, to maintain 100% client retention. That means you never lose a client, and with the exception of death. That's not always easy, and I certainly haven't made that, but I'm at 98%, which I'm pretty proud of. Increase the number of client appointments, to hire an assistant, because up until here I was doing everything on my own, and then within 3 years to become a broker agency and hire 1 agent. So I set specific strategies which involved building relationships within our community, particularly with prominent business leaders. I wanted to maximize the visibility by serving on community, nonprofit, and professional boards, to develop strategic marketing alliances and online marketing system. I had a big action plan. I had a lot of stuff that I needed to do, including getting a lease. I thought I would be a great contributor to the Go Lake Chelan monthly, submitting a monthly article. That didn't happen. But I have had a lot of these things that I've done, created my job description for my assistant, and I hired one. In fact, I now have an assistant plus 2 other agents. I was a board member on a nonprofit organization that fits with my business, and that's Heritage Heights, because that's with Heritage Heights is our local retirement home. So I serve on that board. So it was fantastic having those specific goals in that time frame, and it was interesting. As I was putting this together, I haven't looked at my business plan in probably 2 years. I need to do a new one. I bought Farmers, and I haven't done a business plan since then, and now it's time to take it on. The biggest challenges, regulations, that's my biggest one. I work with, at a national level, I work with the federal government for Medicare. On the state level, it's the Office of the Insurance Commissioner. And then at the local level, I don't have much to do. There aren't many things here, but our regulations are constantly changing with regard to products and timeframes to enroll. Pricing is generally beyond my control. The products are constantly changing. Staffing is a tough challenge. That's one of the hardest ones I've had, because you have to get people up to speed, and oftentimes they move on. Fire. Why do you think fire is one of the challenges? Any guesses? I know it's a tough one, but in our area, especially for the home and auto, being with Farmers now more than health, I do home and auto. So if there's a fire in the area, we get put on binding restriction, which means I can't sell insurance during that time frame. So if you remember a couple months ago, we had a big fire in the area. So I was 3 months where nobody could change their home policy. I could not enroll anybody in a new policy. So if they moved into our area, I couldn't help them. So it really was a challenge. On the other hand, I understand it from the insurer's perspective. Enrollment periods, that's another regulation. We have a very specific time of when we can enroll people. And then the length of time. It took me a good 3 years of just feeling like I was scraping along before anything really came to happen where I could say, oh, if I had to support my business on my own or my family, I can now do it. You know, up until then, it was very tough. And how are we doing on time?
Good, you have 10, 12 minutes.
Okay. The startup requirements and some things you guys should know. You're always going to need a business license. It does not matter what business you're in. The government wants to know that you're a creditable business. And so what licenses are required? Well, how I like to look at it is where's your office? Where's your business? Because your office is in a city, the city is in a county, the county is in the state's in the nation, right? So depending on where you are and what your industry is, you may need multiple licenses. I need a city license in order to have my business in the city of Chelan. I need a state license in order to sell my health insurance. I need a federal certification in order to sell Medicare. So usually what happens when you're starting your business is you might go to your local agency. So here, if you're unincorporated, you're probably going to go to the county and say, here's the business that I want to start. What do I need to do? And they will guide you in the licenses that are needed. And then again, the type of business is going to be very important. As an insurance agent, I'm required to have a very specific license. As a restaurant owner, you're probably not going to need an insurance license, right? But what you will need to know is which government entities will you be working with. And more than likely, you're going to be working with the health department. If you have employees, you'll have other agencies that you work with. And then one thing to keep in mind, or that I had to learn, was being a home-based. Because remember, initially I was home-based. I was out of my car. So I had to make sure that where my home was actually allowed me to operate my business out of it. So it's really fun, and I learned so much starting my business. Because I mean, we were in our construction. I knew everything about that. But now I was going into a whole new industry. And all the agencies are so nice. They're so accommodating and guide you. As mentioned earlier, you'll want to know if you're having employees. Because if you do have employees, then that's going to require additional agencies that you're working with. Insurance. This is what I do all day long, is help other people with insurance, but I also have to have my own insurance. So some of the things as an insurance company, what they're going to be wondering is, how much of a risk are you? You're opening a business, but as an insurance company, how much confidence that I have that you're not going to cost me money where I'm going to have to pay out? So some things that they're going to look at, once again, are the type of business. Your location. Location is a big part, because think about it, like Seattle right now and everything they've had going with all the rioting. It's a little bit harder to get insurance if you're a restaurant downtown Capitol Hill and to pay a great rate than it is here in the Chelan-Manson area. We have less risk here. If you have employees or subcontractors, then that causes additional risk. Can you think of why an employee might be a risk to a company or to an insurance company? Believe it or not, employees are the biggest asset to most businesses. Most businesses wouldn't work without an employee. They are also the biggest risk to any business. The reason is sometimes employees get hurt on the job, or somebody feels like they've been bullied. So there are a lot of harassment issues that come up. Sexual harassment used to be really big. That's been curtailed a lot. And experience plays a big part in insurance and rating. Does that make sense? Why experience would be part of it? Yeah, so if you have somebody who one day says, I think I'll just start cutting hair with no experience, that could be a bigger risk than somebody who does have experience. Does that make sense? Credit, that's going to be a big part in insurance, although this is changing. But credit, so if you have a great credit score, you're probably a low risk taker, because insurance is about monitoring risk. Taxes, I didn't go into this too much, but I did give you an idea of some areas that you'll be taxed. So income, if you make any money, our government wants a piece of it, and so that's usually based on net income. I must double click this, but business and occupation tax, so that's a state tax. So the income is your profits minus your expenses, that's your net income. Business and occupation tax, that's just your revenue. So it doesn't matter if you have any expenses, you have to pay a portion to the state based on your revenue. Payroll taxes, look at all of those. So you pay a portion, which I didn't put on there, Social Security, Medicare, you also have L&I, Workman's Comp. These two are new. This one, long-term care, that goes into place in 2022, where all employees are required to have long-term care. And then the last one, the family emergency medical leave. And then if you have a property, you'll pay property taxes. And sometimes they're personal. Well, at the end of the day, aside from your corporation, you'll also pay your personal income taxes. So is it worth it to be an entrepreneur? Working for yourself versus someone else, really at the end of the day, it comes down to it being a lifestyle choice. It can bring you huge income. It can also bring you incredible losses. And there's no guarantee when you're your own boss. The only thing I don't think I put it up here. Well, most of the entrepreneurs that I know work much longer hours than people who are employees. Because you have to get the job done. If your employees don't show up, you have to make it happen. The other thing that I didn't put is you worry about your employees. They're like your extended family that you're always taking care of. But being the entrepreneurs has allowed us freedom and flexibility that is really hard to have with a job. So if you have a chance, I highly recommend it. And this is my dog. She wants to thank you. She goes to work with me every day. Awesome. Questions?
Well, you had many, you got
Pardon?
What does LLC stand for?
Limited Liability Corporation. So it's going to limit you from the liability, from the risk, but it's also a taxation formation. So it's a little bit different than a true corporation.
So, I've got a question. If you've got something like a fitness gym, what are some of the types of risks and recommendations for insurance that you might have for someone that's looking at running a gym?
Yes, so that's a great one, because there are a lot of moving parts there for sure. More than likely you have employees. Oftentimes they're personal trainers. So if you own a gym, let's step back. First, you're going to want to make sure that that building is insured. So we start from the outside in, the building, and then the equipment. So what are some of the risks? Like somebody could fall off the equipment. If they're not using it appropriately, they could sustain injury. So in that case, there's a liability insurance policy that you would have to protect yourself. The trainers, more than likely what a gym owner would do is they would mitigate risk. So they're going to put some of the responsibility onto their trainers by requiring that the trainers have their own insurance. And that way the gym owner doesn't have to worry about it, because they're shifting it to the person who might cause the damage. The building, and back to that, you would have the fire and the property done. But those are the main things, are having the liability so that you're protecting yourself from hurting somebody else. Yeah. So in a restaurant, foodborne illness, that's a really big one. You're going to want to make sure you have a policy that specifically addresses that. If you have multiple locations, then those policies, there are policies that will cover you at more than one location. You wanna be really careful, because some policies are only, if they get sick here, it won't include them over there. And then when you're working with bodies, like putting needles in, you're at a whole nother level of risk. You know, with the tattooing. Are you still doing that one, the body art?
Mhm.
Because now we're injecting and we could have some more issues. So for you, the concern is not the type of policy, but finding an insurance company that would cover it. It becomes a higher risk.
And then a shoe store, what would be the type of things that could be a problem there?
Well, the good thing with a shoe store is most of the stuff there is from a manufacturer's perspective. So when you work with a manufacturer, you want to make sure that they have protection for the goods that they've manufactured. So for you, it's more slippage. If they're inside your building, what are some of the issues that are happening, you know, that could be risk? So you're gonna really wanna make sure if children are in, that, you know, and this is for everybody, like if they fall, could they hit their head? It's more about making sure your premises is safe. And then L&I comes in, and you have other agencies that will come in and inspect premises to make sure that you are safe.
So
Great question.
occasionally we have fires in the area
Yeah?
and it impacts business. Is there anything that you can do to mitigate that risk of losing business?
These guys?
Yeah.
Well, so absolutely, you can, it depends on the type of business. You can buy a policy that will cover loss of business. So for example, particularly if you've got vacation rentals, if somebody isn't able to come in because there's a fire, then your policy can pay you for that rental. It's called lost income, basically. Or if your refrigerator goes out, you can have insurance that covers for that. Dan, I'm
Thank
so
you.
sorry. I feel like I should have been more product specific.
No, you were great. You were great. Thank you.
You guys, I have some marketing stuff here if you want to take any. If you're a golfer or just want a little towel, then we have water bottles and keychains. Help yourself.
Alright, I like the golf.